And good afternoon or evening or morning whenever you're listening to this. I'm Ryan Tofil and bringing you episode 2 of Unpopular Opinions. We decided to have Bryan Chai back again for episode 2 because he provided about 80% of the intuitive substance and only about 20% of the stammering and ums. So we're excited to be talking with him.
Heck yeah.
Again today. So we can get right into it. As we talked about earlier, sports betting.
Yep. I mean, that was the big kind of the big sports news in general this week was the Supreme Court opening the door to allow states to legalize gambling.
So fill me in. Just say I had no idea what was going on here. I'm not saying that I do have an idea or that I don't have an idea. Maybe I did do my research, maybe I didn't. Just kind of a brief overview of the situation.
So with the exception of Nevada, it's generally illegal to gamble on sports, which is kind of crazy because it's still so rampant. Sports books all over the place. Basically I think the Supreme Court decided it would be easier to regulate as opposed to letting rampant illegal gambling going on. It'd be easier to regulate if it's legalized, or at the very least let states decide what they want to do with their sports gambling laws. But yeah, the floodgates are open. I believe I read New Jersey's the first state that's really going to dive headfirst into this, and I believe I saw like Rhode Island, Delaware, a couple other places. Yeah, so. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if anything's going to change in like Arizona. They seem pretty staunch against sports gambling, but we'll see.
So anywhere in there, did they say, all right, sports gambling, we used to not think it was okay, now we think it's okay? Or was it kind of like a prohibition type deal where, when they repealed prohibition, the government probably still didn't think that drinking was the best thing for its people, but it was just too out of control for them to ever think that they could govern it?
I do think that's part of it. The other thing is the Supreme Court did say that I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but PASPA, some sports gambling law that went into effect in '92, I believe. They found that it was unconstitutional because it was a federal mandate forcing states to prohibit sports gambling. So it sounds like they're just kind of giving some power back to the states, which I'm all for. That's cool.
Are you all for sports gambling being legal?
Yes. I definitely am. I may or may not partake in it all the time. PASPA, Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act.
Of 1992.
1992. Like I said, Nevada was grandfathered in, so they were allowed to have sports gambling. The PASPA was basically revoked. It's gone. And now states have full control over how they want to handle sports gambling.
Grandfathered in. That's weird that they were like, this is not okay, except if you were already doing it.
Yeah, it was always weird. I mean, that was a big thing. I think Chris Christie, of New Jersey, that was a big point he made, was that why is Nevada allowed to do this? It should either be illegal or legal. So,
right. Yeah, man. I mean, the people in Nevada, the odds makers would have been pretty upset. They're like, you know what, Chris Christie, you're right. Nevada can't do it now, and he just ruined their fun just because he was whining. I mean, this is for me. Kind of a difficult situation to take a stance on. I don't know if everybody listening to a podcast stream about liberty is going to agree with me. I am in situations like drugs and drinking, totally against government regulation. As far as it being illegal, actually government regulation would probably make drugs a whole lot safer. However, in the instance of gambling, the thing that I would have a hard time with is by making it so easy for people is just how many people can be affected by gambling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even in situations where somebody, man, I guess the argument for drugs would be is that you get so far into a drug that you are stealing money from people around you, or you're just being an unproductive leech on society. Honestly, I don't care if you're in your bedroom and getting high on heroin, meth, cocaine, fentanyl, like whatever drugs you want to do.
Man, just jump into the hard stuff. You could have just said pot.
Well, the why I skipped it is because I thought it was just a foregone conclusion is that's like a victimless crime.
Fair enough.
And I'm saying, if you wanted to do something intense like that and you want to go in your own bedroom and you're not going to bother anybody and you're still going to go to a job on Monday and pay your taxes, then that's fine with me. It would be in situations like that where like families start to get ruined, and that's where I would start to struggle with saying like, yeah, like just let's make access to gambling as easy as possible. So, some father is throwing away him and his wife's retirement savings and then going into the kid's college fund. And now, like, just because in so many money is shared throughout a family, and now it can just be so easy for you to lose it all. I don't know if that's something that I necessarily feel good about making easier.
Definitely. I mean, the struggle is definitely how much agency do you want to give each individual person versus, balancing agency versus government control. So I think that's the struggle for a lot of people. That's a struggle for me too. I'm with you on a lot of sentiments. What someone does in their own bedroom, drugs, alcohol, whatever they want to do that may or may not be legal, that's their business. Like I said, if they're going to their job 9 to 5, making ends meet, paying taxes, who am I to judge them? I mean, it doesn't affect me whether or not, what they're doing. But at the same time, like I said, it is such a slippery slope. I mean, look, I gamble on sports. I know some people who have legitimate gambling addictions, and it's a scary thing.
Right.
Because, even stuff like, just to compare, if someone's doing heroin, obviously terrible for you, terrible for your body, but that's their body. And like how you brought up, let's say I went off the deep end with sports gambling, I got a wife, I got a house and mortgage to pay. Like that would be a legitimate problem.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just a situation where like, at what point are your decisions so objectively bad that I'm willing to say the government knows what is better for your family than you do? Yeah. Like, if you are using every cent that your family is bringing in and your kids are hungry because you've got, a few $100 a day cocaine habit or something like that, like, that is just objectively wrong.
Yes.
And now, am I comfortable at that point with the government coming in and taking a little bit of action there and saying like, no, you can't do that, and at least attempting to make it more difficult? I don't know if the answer is throwing this guy in jail so all the income that he would, but it's just something to think about. I do not gamble. I have a bit of an addictive personality that has gotten me in trouble with many scenarios in the past, and to the point where I cannot drink at all anymore, and I cannot do any drugs recreationally anymore because I have no control, and the only thing that I can control is the first one. As a matter of fact, when the Eagles' odds were about 40-1 that they win the Super Bowl, I was arguing. I was like, Jimmy, just please place this one bet for me, just $20 on the Eagles, and he wouldn't do it. and I wouldn't create my own account on Bovada because I knew what a slip. And
Very similar.
If I would have placed that $20 bet at the Eagles at 40-1, what was that been $800? I guarantee you, I would have given a lot more than $800 back to Bovada by this point.
I mean, that's what they're banking on. I mean, fortunately for me, I am somehow both love to bet on sports and I'm also very cheap. So I'm usually pretty good about, hey, like I can drop $20 on various bets for, these 2 weeks, this pay period. So for me, but at the same, I recognize that's not everyone. Like I said, some people have more addictive personalities. And again, I am legitimately curious to see how this proceeds, especially in, states like California, New York. Because it seems like a lot of more smaller states are trying to bring in additional income. So right now it's like New Jersey, Rhode Island that really want to legalize sports gambling. But yeah, I'm curious to see what programs they put in place to make sure things for the individual, it doesn't affect the individual. But at the same time, I'm also curious to see what they do as far as regulating. The big concern, the NFL is the one entity right now that's kind of been against sports gambling. The NBA and MLB have both been, they've kind of jumped on the bandwagon. But NFL has been super hesitant about it. And I understand why, I mean, as soon as you have, you find out like a referee is betting on a game, even if he's not officiating in it, that's a really bad look for the league.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and this is a whole different set of complications, I guess, in regards to sports gambling. I mean, what I was talking to about just like the money aspect on a personal finance level pertains to all sorts of gambling. Now we're getting into the integrity of the sport. And, if you have made access to sports gambling so easy, like, how long can you possibly keep it from seeping into these leagues and, players having their friend's brother put a bet on the other team and point shaving or something like that? That's just a whole different ballgame, which, might be going on anyways. And I think in Boston College had a problem with
the old that I think that was a 30 for 30 documentary. With but I mean the whole point, like the issue with Boston College was that was gang involvement, and I think sports gambling supporters, that one of the arguments they like to make is by legalizing, or at least not making it so illegal,
right?
You're taking some power away from the organized crime organizations. I mean, I'm not smart to tell you whether or not that will happen or, is a possibility. But I have heard that a lot, same, it's kind of the same argument for legalizing marijuana, trying to take it out of the hands of,
I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, just about every time I had an opportunity to get access to drugs harder than marijuana was in a situation where marijuana was involved. You know what I mean? Where if you're walking up to a dispensary and walking out with it, you're probably not going to have the pharmacist or whatever they call trying to also see if you want these pills, like on top of your weed.
Exactly.
So, which is a self-control that I unfortunately didn't have, and now, maybe have to miss out on some of the fine arts like booze and gambling because I just don't have the ability to do it in moderation. From my viewpoint, if I said, okay, 2-week pay period, I can spend $20 on gambling. Oh, let's say I doubled it to 40. I figure I'm playing with house money at that point. Let's do it again. Let's get the adrenaline rush again. If I lost that 20, I'd probably be even more motivated to bet again. Let's just do a sure thing and get it right back. How do you keep yourself from doing that?
Well, like I said, I've just been blessed/cursed with just being really cheap.
Okay.
So it's as soon as I but the thing is, I do have, even I can recognize sometimes, how much of a slippery slope it can be. Like my wife always gets on my case when we go to Vegas. I remember, I think one of the first times I went to Vegas, I was killing it at the blackjack table.
Right.
I was up like $400 or $500. And I'm up, so you keep betting. But she got really mad at me because I think at one point I was up about $400. And I think I put half of that on one end of blackjack, and I lost it. She was not happy with me. But
because you don't realize at that moment that that's $200.
Yeah,
I mean,
because you just earned it like that.
Yeah,
so,
and it's a few chips.
Yep. Yeah. But so like I said, I can see the slipperiness of it. But but by that same token, during that trip to Vegas, as soon as I was down to like plus $80, I was able to kind of turn it off. Like, right. I was like, okay, I was up 400 at one point. Now I'm up 80. I think I got to stop.
Yeah. And just the whole psychology of gambling. And I'm not saying that this is some flaw in your thinking. I don't know if it's just the casino mindset has permeated society, to the point where we think like that. Like even when you're telling that story, you're talking about you left up $80, and in your mind you're not thinking, well, maybe I left down 520 because I had 600 at one point.
Yeah.
And at work, we were writing an article about gambling horror stories where people have just absolutely ruined their lives.
Oh yeah.
In one night at Vegas, with all the ways that they're handing out cash advances, or they let you bet against your credit card or something. Like, if you go to that window, even if you don't have much in your bank account, they'll
find a way to bill
let you find a way to gamble.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading those stories, and like one of them was this guy who went to Vegas with $4,500, and he got down to like 50 or 100 at one point, and he was on this tirade in this forum, this gambling forum, and he retold this miraculous story of how he made it up to $4,000. And so he's telling this story, and this is like a gambling forum, so everyone else in there is applauding him for his $3,900 increase that he made during his final few hours in Vegas. And he left down $500. Like, that is not a small amount. That's more than a lot of money. It's more than a car payment for most people. And somehow, like, as a society, we think that if you had $4,500 and get down to 100 and walk out with 4,000, that you gain $3,900 on that trip. And that's just part of I guess like the power of gambling or addiction. I mean, it's got to be in that just the psychology of addiction, because I'm sure that back when I was drinking, and it's been 4+ years now, but I did so much of it where I knew that I had to quit at 21. I'm sure that I had more than a few comparable stories of situations like that where I'm rationalizing what I did while I was drinking and justifying why it was okay to do it the next time. Just like this guy who loses $500 is going to say that it's okay to.
I mean, that's the other thing, right? Like you said, rationalizing. And I feel like in society, there's so many small things that are technically gambling that we don't really think about. And a lot of it pertains to sports. Fantasy football, that's essentially gambling. Right. March Madness, that's gambling. Pick'em spreads, stuff like that. That's all gambling. And it's become so normal. Like, we don't, if someone says illegal gambling, you think, you just think in your head, like, okay, like, this is bad. But when you hear, like, oh, fantasy football, no big deal. Bad. Yeah, no big deal. But, man, it is true. That's just a slippery slope. And I am excited to see what happens. Just like I said, I do gamble on sports, but I hope the government puts things in place. You know, maybe revamp Gamblers Anonymous, just hotlines to help people. Because gambling is, I get a huge thrill out of it, but man, there is a very, very steep downside to it.
Yeah. I can totally understand where somebody would say something like gambling should not be in the government's jurisdiction at all. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't think I could fault them for that. And, you know, I don't think that it should be illegal to go and have fun with 1% of your paycheck. And if you would have paid $200 for some good seats to a ball game, and just the way you want to spend it is going and having a few hours of fun at the casino, mm-hmm. and you're just spending that money in a different way, then that's fine with me. It's in situations where it's really, really destructive, and why it would make me a little bit uncomfortable, and this may be an unpopular opinion, is because it can affect so many people outside of just the person who's gambling.
Definitely.
So, you know, if somebody wants to say that, you know, this is Joe's money and he can do what he wants with it, and if he wants to go and blow thousands of dollars more than he can afford, then he should be able to do that because he's an American and this is a free country, that's fine. And I probably would let Joe do that too, as long as he's only ruining his own life. If he's a single guy and he doesn't have a kid that needs diapers, you know, and he's only spending his paycheck and not what his wife was going to use to buy the family groceries, that's where just opening the floodgates to me.
You see the potential, like the scary part of, you know, just human nature. And like I said, man, it may be an unpopular opinion on the flip side, but, you know, I'm okay with it. I want less government fingers in my day-to-day business. But yeah.
I mean, I do too, honestly. I mean, I don't think it's a question that marijuana should be legal. I mean, my argument to that is objectively, liquor and beer is much, much, much more destructive than marijuana. So, like, if it's a harder drug than marijuana, how in the world are people going to jail for marijuana, mm-hmm. and liquor is sold at 7-Eleven, depending on what state you live in? And maybe I think that even as someone who maybe leans more libertarian, I think I would be okay with drug legalization stopping at marijuana, because now we've got everything that's about as harmful as alcohol and below legalized. I would probably lean towards you can put whatever you want into your body, whether it's cocaine, heroin. The only thing that stops me from being 100% all for that is the undeniable consequences that has on other people. Yeah. I think that anything that only affects a person individually and is truly a victimless crime, that should be legal no matter what it is. But when there are people around them that, like, you know, that heroin is extremely addictive to the point where people are going to steal money mm-hmm. from loved ones and stuff. And, like, that's what I have problems with, not this guy's doing heroin and while he's high he didn't bother anyone. Well, good for him. And if he's somebody who can willpower his way through a heroin addiction so that it doesn't affect anyone around him negatively, then good for him, and he should be allowed to do as much heroin as he wants. Mm-hmm. But from what we know about it, why I don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, just legalize it, is all the people around him it affects, and how much less likely he is to then be motivated to go out and get a job or further himself.
Definitely.
So moving on to some lighter topics, NBA playoffs are continuing, and whether you like sports or not, this is about the time of year where you might start casually turning into games because you've only got the best of the best left. And we are down to the 2 conference finals.
The Final Four.
LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers against Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, and the Celtics in the East. And then we've got James Harden in Houston and just the mega powers
the Warriors.
Golden State. I mean, I guess Steph Curry is not completely healthy to the point where he was being picked on when he was playing defense a little bit in game 1. But still, just as far as pure talent goes, I don't think that the NBA, I mean, you'd have to go to the 92 Dream Team to find talent like that.
It's true.
On one roster.
So, yeah, the conference finals are going on. I believe the Rockets and Warriors are playing probably right now as we're speaking.
It started 11 minutes ago.
Yeah. And I mean,
14.
the Warriors up in that, no one's all that surprised. I mean, the Warriors are stacked beyond belief. I mean, they have 2 legit MVP candidates and 2 perennial All-Stars. I don't think any other team can boast that. But the bigger surprise is in the East, where the undermanned and injury-ravaged Celtics are up 2-0 against the great LeBron James.
Well, I think that you said it perfectly, even without realizing it, is you said the Celtics are up against LeBron James. See, and that's pretty much what it is.
See, a lot, I've noticed a lot of LeBron supporters have been kind of talking about that, but I came to an epiphany last night watching that game. LeBron James is a bigger, slightly higher basketball IQ version of Russell Westbrook at this point. He is a sieve on defense. Did you watch the game last night?
Well, I had a rec league soccer game.
Oh,
so
fair enough.
I did not.
Fair enough. I think at this stage of LeBron's career, he's still an offensive dynamo. He doesn't play defense anymore, man. Like, he looked gassed.
You understand that this guy's in about his 40th year in the league, playing 48 minutes and having to create every single bit of offense that they have. Yeah, he's going to be gassed on defense.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse. I mean, this roster is LeBron James's roster. He picked these guys. In the Indiana series, all the young guys he just traded for, LeBron said, sit him down. I want my veterans who I've gone to war with before, and that's totally fine. He's the captain, but I don't think you can make excuses for LeBron at this point. He doesn't play defense anymore.
I will agree that I do think it's a joke. Whether you want to blame LeBron or the higher ups in the Cavs administration, that I don't care if you do have the best player in the league in LeBron James. The rest of that roster is so bad and making so much money that the Cavs are the highest paid team in the league.
Yep.
That is not a good job by their front office.
It's
like
not.
George Hill is making almost $20 million a year. J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson are in the teens. Kyle Korver's around $10 million a year. Like, it is absolutely incredible what they are paying these guys, and the level that they're producing lets us use his team is bad as an excuse for LeBron. I totally agree that is not a good job by the front office, and maybe we can throw LeBron in that too, because we know that
definitely can.
Okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not arguing for his GM skills. I'm saying on the court, it's not LeBron's fault that the team is down.
I mean,
2-0.
what's the difference between watching a Thunder game and a Cavaliers game right now? LeBron / Westbrook pounds the ball. You got shooters just dotted around the perimeter, and they just stand there and wait for LeBron / Westbrook to do something. Like, it hit me like a brick wall, like a sack of bricks yesterday. Just watching, like, there's no difference between LeBron and Westbrook right now. Absolutely none.
I mean, If I don't think it's fair to just say that LeBron is not a factor on defense. I mean, if he was playing a reasonable amount of minutes, he is one of the premier defenders in the league, and he may still be the best athlete that they have in the league when you talk about combination of strength and size. However, when you're playing 46 minutes a game and are the only person on your team that is able to create their own offense, no matter how many points Kevin Love has, if it, like, he's not somebody who gets the ball in the perimeter and a basket can come of it. Not even so much anymore. Maybe earlier in his career, you could give it to him on the block, and let him, try to back somebody down. But that's not happened a ton since he's come to the Cavs. No. Maybe it's just a symptom of the Cavs offense, but how he gets his scoring now is in the rhythm of the offensive plays.
Yeah, I mean, to me, but to defend LeBron somewhat here, to me, that's a symptom of coaching. And I will say the one thing LeBron has never really had in his entire NBA career is like a truly great coach. He's had decent coaches. I mean, I think Eric Spoelstra is a pretty darn good coach. Yeah,
he's...
I don't think Ty Lue is.
No, I mean, I would say Eric Spoelstra is now. I don't know if
he was when
he was. I don't.
That's fair. I think that's very fair.
I don't know how many years, if any, he'd been coaching before LeBron got there.
None.
Yeah.
He was he went from
he was a video assistant or something like that.
Yeah. But, I will say, to me, that is a symptom of coaching. If LeBron were fortunate enough to have a coach like a Greg Popovich or a Rick Carlisle or a Brad Stevens, I think they would better be able to use him. But right now, all Ty Lue is calling is just these LeBron ISOs. Occasionally, he'll run a pick and roll. Sometimes they'll run some off-ball action. Kevin. One pet play they really like is when Kevin Love gets a screen and is just cuts along the baseline, and LeBron's such a good passer.
Yeah. And that one can be tough.
Sorry.
That's is that Greg Popovich now? Or Ty Lue's calling. He's like, "What are you talking about?" Kevin Love, despite not being quite the dynamo as a second fiddle that we thought he was going to be when you looked at how good he was as the man in Minnesota, when he sets a screen and he can pick or pop, he's a good enough shooter, won the 3-point competition one year, that's a really tough situation for a defender. But in most circumstances, I don't blame the Cavaliers coach because they don't have anybody else that is going to get the ball and make something. The closest they have to that is J.R. Smith getting the ball and dribbling between his legs a little bit, realizing he's not going to shake his defender and just taking the shot as the guy breathes on him.
Speaking of J.R. Smith, I don't know if you've seen it, but he had a flagrant foul yesterday.
I saw that after the game. He had no complaints about it. He's like, yeah, that was pretty blatant, actually.
Yeah, he pretty much admitted it. That was a Bush League play. It may not be the dirtiest thing I've ever seen in the NBA, but it's up there. I mean, pushing someone in the back when they can't defend themselves, that's Bush League. Yeah. That being said, J.R. Smith, I believe, had a grand total of 0 points last night.
He did have 0 points, which during the Cavs title run, I think he was up around 11 a game. So,
I mean, even when the Cavs swept the Raptors, I believe he was averaging about 15 a game. And so, that, they don't need a lot from him. But here, let me ask you this. This is an unpopular opinion, or maybe an unpopular question. What teammates has LeBron James made significantly better?
All of them.
Has he?
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. I mean,
see, okay, LeBron, when you give LeBron...
Can we get on the screen here Mario Chalmers and see if he was an all-star? Because if Mario Chalmers...
I don't believe he was ever an all-star.
Made into an all-star...
No, he's not an all-star. He was never an all-star.
Hang on, let's see here.
And that's not a great barometer. Jamal McGlure and Josh Howard were also all-stars at one point in their career.
In the 2000...
Probably the 3-point contest? if you go down a bit on the right-hand side under his picture, it has all his accolades.
McDonald's All-American.
Yeah. So Mario Chalmers was never an All-Star.
All-rookie second team. He participated in the All-Star weekend. Boy, it was somebody not. It was a graph or a chart, infographic, if you will, that I saw on Facebook comparing LeBron and Jordan, and it had some guy that I don't even know if I could have told you his name, playing for the Heat, that was an All-Star.
But okay, so my point being, comparing LeBron. See, like, to me, I can't recall any teammates he's made. Like, who has he made money for? I mean, yes, Tristan Thompson, but that's because that's his agency, like his sports agency.
I don't know anybody else in history that could have won that series against the Golden State Warriors, the best regular season team in NBA history, with that roster that LeBron had. The year before that, if you want to go, I think the metric was wins above replacement, that the team that LeBron drugged to the finals, or dragged, depending on which part of the country you're from, was the worst, or maybe the second worst team ever, besides his own 08
the
Cavaliers.
Cavs team that got swept, yeah.
That made it to the finals, like just the worst. And like Kevin Love was not on that team. Iguodala got the MVP playing for the Golden State Warriors because he held LeBron to like 35 points a game. Iguodala only scored like 10 points a game in that finals.
He did.
And got the MVP because of the defense he was playing on a guy scoring like 35 points.
I mean, yeah, I did think
Matthew
Steph Curry.
Dellavedova and Timothy Mozgov were the Cavs' two best players other than LeBron in his first finals back in Cleveland.
Okay, so yes, that was not a good team. I get it. But guys like Mozgov and Dellavedova were rendered virtually useless. They were not effective. I mean, they got minutes, so they put up some numbers. But compared, like, say, Steve Nash, he made 2-bit role players like Quentin Richardson and Tim Thomas some decent money. Like, he made the players around him actively better. Like, I can't say the same for LeBron. I just can't. At this point, I can't. Well, okay, so let's go back in time to that really bad 08 Cavs team.
Okay.
Who was on it? It was like Eric Snow, Larry Hughes.
I think Delonte West, Ilgauskas.
Yeah, so
I don't know. I think Anderson Varejao.
Yes, I think Varejao was like a rookie that year, something like that. But just, I mean, none of those guys, like, Larry Hughes was a fringe all-star with the Wizards, goes to Cleveland and just falls off the face of the planet. Like, that's not making a teammate better. I mean, sure, maybe that's on Larry Hughes, but LeBron's supposed to be this, savant of basketball, and he is a great passer. He makes flashy passes, but I can't. I'm not sure he makes his teammates better.
Larry Hughes, who was at the end of his career when LeBron was at the very beginning of his. That would be like chastising Michael Jordan because he was playing with George Gervin his rookie year. And Gervin was over the hill in about 48. And nobody gets mad at Michael Jordan because he didn't make Gervin the player he was back in the ABA.
Well, yeah. But I mean, by that same token, one of the biggest knocks against Jordan for years and years and years was he was a scorer. He doesn't make his teammates better. And now, granted, it took a Hall of Fame caliber coach like Phil Jackson to coax to coax Jordan to make his teammates better. And maybe LeBron needs that. At this point, I don't think it'll ever happen, but I mean, if he went to the Spurs or something with Pop, I think a truly elite coach can unlock more of LeBron. That's the crazy thing. I mean, LeBron, like we said last time, I think, I made an amend. LeBron is a top 3 player all time.
Okay,
all time. But he, I'll give him credit where credit's due, but he just doesn't make teammates better. And I think a big part of that is coaching, but some of it should fall on him.
We have been on this for a while now, so slightly switching topics. Someplace you could find that out is in the NBA 2K series, where, you know, both like all-time Jordan and LeBron during some of his best years are in the game. Where do you think that series is at? I know that you've been into it very much in the past, and you know, if you don't have rave reviews for NBA 2K, what's something in the sports gaming landscape that you think would be worth playing? I would like to hear it from the perspective of somebody who does not play sports games. I do, but if I didn't like sports, there are no sports games out there that instantly come to mind. Maybe Super Mega Baseball to me, but that's not a license, is more of an arcade. I can't think of anything where, if I'm not a diehard sports fan, that I want to play that sports video game. Whereas in the past, if you look at like Tecmo Super Bowl or NHL 94,
even non-sports fans,
non-sports people could really have fun with those, and that's not the case.
Yeah,
these days.
For me personally, you know, I mean, I love most sports, but as far as a sports game where even a non-sports, maybe NHL. That's probably the closest as far as modern video game iterations go. I mean, it's fairly. I mean, it's not a simple game, but it's a simple video game sport. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, you got your team. You're just trying to.
No, yeah, I took. You know, I'm thinking about the control scheme. And it is really easy to do the basic things in that game. You know, when you compare it to something like Madden.
Yeah.
And trying to complete a pass where you've got to pick out your receiver and then switch the receiver and pick which of the 3 types of catches you'd like to do. Or NBA, where you're trying to get open so you have a chance at making the shot. NHL seems a lot more friendly to somebody that might be turning the game on for the first time, not having played sports in a while. Yeah. One thing I can appreciate about NHL is just like how good the game looks.
Yeah.
And I think FIFA too, when you turn those games, especially when you're playing it at night, maybe you got a big TV, maybe you're in college and you've got some illegal substances in you, like just how white that ice is on NHL, and like how big it, like you can really feel like you're looking at real ice and real players. And I just love on NHL like how the background is all white, and on FIFA the background is all green, and it looks so good with the contrast of the players against it. Yeah. I think even on those games where you're much farther away, I think that those are way better looking than like red or white jerseys on a brown NBA floor.
Yeah. I mean, just personal opinion, I think EA is a garbage company.
Yeah, I don't like their tactics. Judging their games would try to be like, I didn't, even though I probably would have enjoyed it, I didn't buy Star Wars Battlefront 2 just out of principle.
Yeah.
However, you know, they can make a good game every once. I don't think Madden's good anymore, but I think NHL is getting more fun, and I think FIFA, they better find something new to do soon. Mm-hmm. But their current formula is the best. One of the best. That's one of the reasons that soccer has gotten more popular in America.
FIFA played a huge role in it.
Just because FIFA was such a fun video game, and it made the entire sport more popular in America. Maybe because it wasn't too complicated. Honestly, even as somebody who follows football, and I played a whole heck of a lot of Madden in the early 2000s, fell off. You know, I would say I probably played 2002 or 2004-ish to 2010. I was playing every year, and I was probably playing at least a season or two of 10-minute quarters in my franchise, and now that game's so complicated. Is that why no one new is picking up sports games, because they're too complicated?
I think that's actually a huge part of it. Just me personally, I've always loved sports, but my video game tastes were always kind of like Super Mario, Final Fantasy. Like I was never that in sports game. What got me hooked on sports games was actually NBA Street Volume 2.
Right.
Very arcadey, very easy to pick up.
That was the one with the 3 different versions of Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it's like, and like I believe I had the GameCube version, so I had like Mario, Peach, and Luigi on my team. But yeah, like it's a simple arcade game that I was able to pick up. Even I watched basketball, but and I played, but video games are a different animal when it comes to playing. But it was so simple. There was shoot, there was block, there was dunk. I mean, that's pretty much all there was, and steals. That's pretty much all there was in NBA Street, and that was really what started my love of sport. I mean, I haven't really looked back since. I probably played almost every NBA 2K and Madden since I really sunk my teeth into NBA Street Volume 2. But we don't have that these days. We don't have the simpler arcade. There is no NBA Street.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what game developers are listening to this podcast. I don't think that you have to have something that complicated on the surface where you have to be able to read a zone versus a man defense just to feel like you're able to play the game. Yeah. If you look at stuff, I know for a fact that there are huge, I guess, underground or bar communities, leagues for games like Tecmo Super Bowl, Mario Tennis, NHL Hits, and games like that get as deep as you want them to be. Like Mario Tennis,
great game.
Your 6-year-old buddy can pick it up and just hit A because he's just going to get the ball over the net, and that's what the game is to him. You put a few hundred hours into it, and you're thinking about, like, do I need to hit top spin or back spin right there? Yep. Should I be positioned closer to the net, or should I be playing back? Like, you're looking at the position of your opponent, seeing that he's in no man land. Are you going to try a drop shot then? And then, like, the psychological games of what part of court are you going to go cross court again, or like where layers of the game are just kind of created by the player's skill and knowledge, and that's how things get deeper. Like messing with the playbooks in Tecmo Super Bowl, or your substitutions and stuff like that. And it's not complicated out of the box.
Yeah, and that I do think that's lost. Like the barrier of entry for a game, like let's say I had like a 10-year-old brother, which I don't, but let's say like a 10-year-old brother who loves watching football with me, and really wants to start playing Madden with me. Like the barrier of entry for a game like Madden is just so steep. Yeah. And there's no alternatives either. Like Madden is the professional football game. Like if you want to play an NFL game, it's Madden. That's it. There's no NFL Street. There's no NFL 2K. It's Madden. So I do think sports games skew towards being a little too complicated, but at the same time, I do understand the struggle for the developer, because if you dumb down, like let's say next year they dumb down Madden and just made it crazy, so there's gonna be a riot. Like diehard Madden fans will be not very unhappy with them.
I would like to see how profitable those series are getting, and I'm not even saying it's the developer's fault, but they're getting to such a point of realism where there are no more like huge improvements to be made, and pretty much whatever they do is just a roster update. And if they're doing that, anything else, it's just pretty much for the sake of being able to say, hey, this isn't just another roster update. I mean,
the last meaningful addition to Madden, in my opinion, it was probably the hit stick, and that was 2005 or 6 maybe.
I did like the truck stick, which I don't know why in the first place they didn't just give you the option to do the hit stick while you have the ball.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, the truck stick also was probably like a year or two after.
Yeah, that was 06.
Yeah, so it's like Madden hasn't had like that crazy innovation like that since 2000. That's 12 years ago.
So Why are people buying the new games? Has EA really made it that difficult to get new rosters or onto the games?
Yeah, basically. I mean, in theory, I could see a potential future. I don't know if it'd be more profitable, but if EA released just a base Madden, no year attached, and like every year you pay like $5 to get the newest roster update, because at this point there really isn't much more that they can add to the actual game engine. I don't think they'll do that. I'm sure there's much more money to be made in re-releasing a new Madden every year.
I think, man, even if you want to drop the price a little bit, the danger is not being seen as like a AAA game. Like, games are $60, and if it's less than that, you know, if you see a new game being released at $40 or $50, again, NASCAR Heat is not going to be the same quality of sports game as NHL just because I see it's being released for cheaper. But I don't know if the balance of that may show their fans at least a little bit of respect, where like these people really want to play the game, but they're also not idiots.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I don't know, part of the frustration would be them trying to sell me something that the game is not, like they did with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Just like the marketing in presenting things that weren't really how they were going to be in the final product.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more symptomatic of just, I mean, we see it in video games all the time, Alien Isolation, the footage it wasn't Isolation, it was the other one, Alien Colonial Marines.
Yeah, that was
a big brouhaha.
360 generation.
Yeah, like how they, in the previews and stuff, it looked one way, but the actual final product was just this janky, broken mess.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's kind of what Madden's doing by trying to convince me they've made a new game.
Yeah. I mean, I know plenty of people who pick up Madden like every other year or, you know, what have you. I mean, not everyone's a sucker like me where I buy it every year full price. But, you know, just for me personally, like just based on the sheer hours I put in, I get my money's worth when I pay $60 every year for a new Madden.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the thing is, like, I feel like I'm in like the upper 5th percentile of like Madden addicts who just play. I've probably sunk hundreds of hours in Madden.
So I mean, I don't know if you're playing anything besides sports games, but just thinking in comparison, man, I don't know if getting into the new Call of Duty and trying to go online is going to be any easier than Madden.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, both of them are annual franchises. So, I mean, at a certain point, you keep adding a little stuff here and a little thing there, and, you know, the barrier of entry becomes that much higher. And I do think that's part of it. I was never a big Call of Duty guy. I'm terrible at first-person shooters. But, you know, I did...
Yes.
I did play a lot of Modern Warfare 2 back in college.
Okay.
And then I bought Modern Warfare 3, and it was just so similar. I just kind of lost interest. I haven't really played a Call of Duty since then. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to explain. Maybe it's just because I suck at the game. I'm okay at Madden. But with Call of Duty, once I started to see how iterative it was every year, I lost interest real quick. That hasn't been the case for me for Madden and NBA 2K. That could change in the next year or two. But I do think that's one of the many, many downsides of having annual franchises is when you keep adding things every year, it's almost impossible for newcomers to jump in. Yeah,
I mean, you know, I'll try to play something like Call of Duty these days. And back in the day, I used to be decent at it. I mean, we're talking like the first Black Ops and stuff. I wasn't great, but I killed a lot more times than I was killed, and doing well was fun for me. And just not even being able to come close to that in like all of the hours of experience you would have to get anywhere near a 1.0 KD these days is just so intimidating that it makes me not really interested from the start. And for anybody who's knee-jerk response is to just say get good, or like you have to put the hours in to be good. Like, that's not what I'm playing video games for. I'm not trying to train myself to be better at video games. I'm not doing them competitively. I'm trying to relax. And I have a job, and I tell people I have a social life.
Yeah.
And regardless of if I do or I don't, like, that's something I would like to at least pretend I'm maintaining, and I have other games I want to play. Like, I don't want to spend all my time playing Call of Duty. Yep. I would like to be able to get on for 2 hours a week and have it still be fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, too, you kind of alluded to, is just by virtue of us getting older, we have less free time. In my youth, I could be like, all right, I'm going to, the next couple months, I'm gonna beat Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. Those are each 30, 40-hour games, and I could I put 100 hours into Fallout 3 when I was in college. I don't have 100 hours to put into a video game anymore.
Well, so then, like, who? I don't know. I mean, there's got to be an answer to this question. Who are they marketing Madden towards?
I mean, it's got to be people like us, but 10 years ago, right? Like kids with free time who love football. Like that's
I guess. I mean, but I think it's too complicated for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And then it's too complicated for anybody with other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like I know I just sound like an old person who wants my music back before rock and roll came into town, but sports games in particular are getting too complicated, and they're losing the spirit.
Yeah.
I think games used to be so much more like innocent and fun. And
I mean, I grew up playing, like Mega Man on the Nintendo, Super Mario Bros. Like, yeah, like it's a different era of video games, man. Like, the biggest thing for me though is just when you don't have the time, you got to be so much more selective. You know what I mean? And you said so yourself. Like, is there anything that you're playing right now?
I've been playing a little bit of Super Mega Baseball. Xbox Gold had a sale a few weeks ago where FIFA 18 and NBA Live 18 combined were $20.
That's a good deal.
I played about half a game of NBA Live, but I have gotten some time in on FIFA. I think I said last time, both the Halo Wars. I mean, I just discovered that RTS is fun to me, so I played through both of those.
Yeah, but just like those games are complicated on their own. Like, I mean, they're not mad and complicated, but they are like an RTS is a complicated genre.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen some Twitch streaming and stuff, and that is not. They're playing honestly a different game.
Yeah.
Like I'm building up my base, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching all the things get built and everything. And I'm like, whoa, like look at it's like coming out of the ground. It's kind of cool. And then like seeing my money go up and stuff. You go on Twitch, dude. These guys never have a balance because they're spending it so quickly, and they've got 15 different armies like of 2 characters or whatever doing stuff like across the map, and like that's not what I'm playing. I am on a moderate difficulty, and I've got one army that I'm controlling because you can hit LB once and select all of them and send them all to the same place. Yeah,
see, that's the like with Twitch and stuff, it is crazy how recently people will play this, like you said, so they'll play the same exact game, but they are playing 2 completely different games.
No, I now that we think about it, I think that Halo Wars definitely does a good job with a low barrier of entry. Something like Mario Tennis, because I'm thinking, when I was really into Mario Tennis and just about everyone around me was into Mario Tennis, there were things like the game was so much more complex than when we had first started playing. That is very similar to what I'm seeing this Twitch streamer do. Compared to me just getting onto Halo Wars. And honestly, I could put it on the easiest level and give it to my younger sibling or my girlfriend who doesn't play a lot of video games and just kind of guide them through the first couple levels. But it's like, okay, you build this thing and units come out of it, and then you make them walk around the map and see if they can overpower stuff they encounter around the map.
Yeah, so there's like different levels. Like obviously an 8-year-old playing Halo Wars versus like a pro, esports player. That's gonna be very different. And even other things like growing up, speedrunning was not a thing that I knew of growing up playing, and now it's huge. Like people love. I mean, I love speedrunning. But yeah, it is awesome to see the evolution of video games. And then, like I said, when it comes to you and me, we just don't have that much free time. So we sink our time into individual video games, play them a certain way. Like, it blows my mind, some of these speedrunners, like, I think I recently watched one where someone got all 150 stars or whatever from Mario 64 in, like, an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just... like the amount of, like that takes time and dedication that I simply don't have. Like, and it makes me wonder, like, is there a level of video gaming that I'm just not going to reach because I don't have the time?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew exactly how far off the world record for Super Mario World I am. But I can tell you that when you're trying to shave off those final few seconds to get to the world record, like, the final second you shave off probably took you about 100 hours to like get the difference down of that one last second. Yeah. And man, I've played a lot of Super Mario World, and there is no way I'm even close. But I have thousands and thousands of hours in that game.
I mean, before I really got into speedrunning, me and my old college roommate we didn't even call it speedrunning. We just, hey, let's see how fast we can beat Mario Brothers 3. And we used to time it. And at one point, we got to the point where we were going to have to beat that game in probably about 20 minutes. Like, we're using the 2 whistles, just going straight for Bowser as quickly as possible. And, I recently rebooted Mario Brothers 3 up, and I don't have it anymore. Like, I can't even
you had to have me help you.
Yeah, I did. You're right.
So we don't have that much free time anymore. We'll respect our listeners who might not have that much free time anymore and try to keep it at an hour. I really got to hustle and turn back the clock here if I'm going to end this podcast before the hour mark. But thank you, Bryan, for coming on. And
wait, I do want to say one last thing. It is Laurel, not Yanny.
Oh, I heard Yanny. I got a relationship to patch up with somebody else because of that, so I don't want to talk too much more about it. I've had my fill for the day. But thank you, everyone, for listening to Unpopular Opinions. We hope we did a little better than last week, and thanks for listening. We hope to do a little better next week. Thank you.
See ya.